Let's get to our top story, which is huge developments in Ukraine this morning into the afternoon, and updates still coming in at this hour. It is dark there now. It is nighttime, so things will probably pick up tomorrow again as as International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors. Get our weapons inspectors / nuclear inspectors mixed up. They have made their long-awaited trip to Ukraine. Headed to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. They've arrived. The group is made up of 14 people who are looking for answers about what is going on at this power plant, right? We've had a lot of questions as to, well, who's been shelling this thing, right? If you listen to Western media, who is it?
Well, the Western media is repeating Ukraine's accusations that it's Russian shelling. But then again, this plant has been in the hands of Russia since early in the conflict, March, April timeframe. So it is controlled by Russian forces. So Russia is saying, why would we fire on our own troops? Russia continues to say that it is Ukrainian forces that are shelling this plant, which will hurt everyone in and around that region and across borders, obviously. Russia also showed off images of those shells, which seem to be British, right? So they were saying that they had been gifted to Ukraine from Britain.
We have separate reports about HIMARS attacks as well.
Yes.
American HIMARS weapons that were used. As Scott Ritter, we had on the show, talked about, that's a war crime. He says, why is the Western media ignoring this? So all of that to say, this is what the inspectors are looking for.
And
right?
Russia has been basically begging this institution to please come and see for yourself, because yes, this is dangerous for everybody.
So the inspectors arrived yesterday in Kiev. Then they made their way towards the Zaporizhzhia area, this power plant, this afternoon. And this morning we got word shortly after lunchtime that the Ukrainian military held them up for 3 hours, blocking their access to the area. So here we have a photo. You can see these inspectors being blocked. They're basically pleading with them here. We're here for 3 hours. They were basically having to discuss a passage because of Ukrainian soldiers getting in their way. So, this is unbelievable. Why has the Ukrainian military been so reluctant to let inspectors into the plant? And I mentioned this earlier to you, and you said, it's like, oh yeah, hold on, let me clean up the house real quick before you go there. They knew they were coming.
Yes.
That wasn't Zelensky on the right, was it? With the hat?
No, I know. That's a little chubbier guy, but that's not.
Looks a little like him. Huh?
I know. It does. Like it's his big brother.
Okay.
His doppelganger.
Bob Zelensky.
Bob Zelensky's not heavy. It's his brother.
That's right.
He maintains the Italian villa.
So we already know the answer to all of this, which is like, of course, that what they're hiding there at the plant, right? That's exactly what we've been hearing from multiple sources. That, of course, the shelling coming from western part of Ukraine coming into this area, you would be able to track that and see the angle of these shells, where they're coming from. And again, Russia. And here's a shell bombing that happened this morning. So these are shell videos that are just from this morning. According to Intel Republic, which has been doing some excellent boots on the ground journalism, we learned that overnight, this is an amazing story, 60 Ukrainian soldiers, you probably will not see this in the mainstream media at all. I would really challenge CNN to actually cover this part of the story. So overnight, a group of 60 Ukrainian commandos, 2 commando groups with 7 boats, launched across the river to try to take back the Zaporizhzhia power plant. Now, they attacked the area using shells that we just showed you in this video, and that was this morning. So these 60 Ukrainian soldiers try to attack the plant on boats. Then the Russian Air Force took them out, and 3 of them are now in custody. 2 of them are in critical condition, and I'm absolutely sure that the the nuclear inspectors maybe would love to speak with them.
Yes.
Hey, we got some guys in the hospital. They were trying to show up this morning. Maybe we should go and talk to those guys. We also learned this afternoon that, and Gonzalo Lira is tweeting this, I've seen this now in multiple reports, that he's jokingly calling this a rumor, but you can read between the lines. We don't have confirmation of this yet, but I've heard from multiple sources on this that this was planned by the British, the British military, the British special forces, to carry out this early morning attack on the power plant. And the goal, I'm just going to go through what Gonzalo says here, is that this was Boris Johnson himself was pushing for this insanity. A group of British-trained Ukrainian commandos would stage an amphibious raid on this area and form a beachhead for a larger attack group of the power plant. Their plan was to take the International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors as hostages and then mine the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. And then get this, he says, they would pretend to be Russian commandos so they could blame it on Russians.
That's ridiculous. This is an Avengers movie.
I know. But why were these 60, that happened. 60 commandos tried to storm the plant this morning, and they were taken out by the Russian Air Force. That's been confirmed by multiple news outlets this afternoon. So, and there's 3 of them were captured, 2 of them in critical condition, 1 who may be able to speak to the press. Or inspectors or other people.
According to this theory, there are Ukrainian military members who could act convincingly as if they are Russians. They are capable of doing that.
Sure. I mean, if they can speak fluent Russian, it's not uncommon at all.
And yes, I'm wearing this uniform, and absolutely I am. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not, of course, many people in Ukraine speak Russian. In fact, Ukrainian is a fairly recent language to that region.
Let's go through some of the rest of it then to kind of maybe answer this. So the Russians appear to have foiled this whole operation, destroying 47 commandos with these air attacks, but capturing at least 2 and an additional 2 who are in critical condition. If they survive, the Russians will have 4 witnesses who can testify to this insanity. Whoever thought this was a rational, reasonable plan is beyond desperate. This is insanity on a major scale. It's a global nuclear blackmail, and the current information points to MI6 and Boris Johnson. According to the current rumor, as he says it, it was the British MI6 that planned this insane operation from those suburban offices in Kiev at the behest and the encouragement of Boris Johnson, who, by the way, gave his last speech today, telling people to go out and buy new tea kettles in Britain. That's exactly what he said. You'll save money on your electric bill by going and buying a new tea kettle. Might cost you £20, but you'll save in the long run because it's a new tea kettle, and that's how we'll solve Britain's energy crisis.
The new ones are more energy efficient. I gotcha.
That was his last speech.
And then the landfill will be filled with all old tea kettles.
I would love to hear in our chat. Let us know, you guys watching us live right now. I mean, these 60 commandos were killed, 47 of them at least, we know, and a number of them captured. 7 boats were used in this attack, and they knew these inspectors were coming there today. They arrived in Kiev yesterday. This was announced and on the books and happening. Why in the hell would they put an attack towards a nuclear power plant when these inspectors are showing up? I mean, just let me know in the chat what you think about it. Because can you come up with another idea? I don't know.
And let's prove to them we're not shelling there by attacking there in a different way.
Yeah, that went really well. It'll be interesting to see, though, what reports come out. So let's go further into this inspection, because I want to see if the UN and these atomic energy inspectors actually want to find out why were these commandos coming there in the first place? Like, what's the point of that? And will we hear any of that in their report? Anyway, so we also learned this afternoon from the Intel Republic. The Zaporizhzhia administration says failed Ukrainian army attempt to take control of Zaporizhzhia was at the command of the British Special Services. Ukrainian paratroopers taking part were trained abroad, as Russian Ministry of Defense says Kiev's forces taking part in the assault were almost completely destroyed. Okay?
Now, we had independent reports of Ukrainian soldiers being trained in the United Kingdom just as recently as last week, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I can't remember the context in which
it was in Kent. It was in it was in Kent in the UK.
Okay, so we know that those people exist.
Yes, they absolutely exist. We have plenty of reports of them being trained in Denmark, in Belgium, in the UK, in Germany. I mean, all sorts of training going on in Germany as well. So I'm curious. A lot of people said, I saw someone from Sweden in our chat just saying, no, I've not heard any of this in Sweden. Like, we're not hearing any of these reports. I just would be curious, in your local news reports that you watch in your country, do you get this kind of news? Are you seeing any of these stories? Or do you just get the propaganda that they spin to you? So anyway, it was a suicide mission. if they signed up for this, it was a suicide mission. They knew they were going to be taken out. After a 3-hour delay, after this bombardment this morning, then finally, these inspectors were allowed to actually make their way to the power plant. Here's video of them in the convoy making their way down the road there as the International Atomic Energy Agency on their way to the power plant. And then here they are pulling in. We have video of that too, of them pulling in the gate. Here they're pulling up to, there's reactor number 1. Pulling in there. And then, so they pulled in all the big convoy. And then Rafael Grossi, who is in charge of this, the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, he says, look, the whole world, the attention has been on this. There he is, that's Grossi, on this power plant. We've been watching it from the very beginning, he says, but it was necessary to take a step forward and to stabilize the situation. So then he spoke on camera. Again, Intel Republic has some video here. I want to play that one first, Rossi at the power plant, where he's talking about some of the concerns and getting some answers here. So listen to Rossi talking about what they've accomplished today in a few short hours at the power plant. Listen.
We are finishing our long-awaited visit to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. I have just completed a first tour of the key areas that we wanted to see in this first approach to the whole facility. Of course, there is a lot more to do. My team is staying on, and most importantly, we are establishing a continued presence from the IAEA here.
Okay.
All right, so they're sticking around, right? They're not here for you to prove anything in one day.
No, till September 3rd.
Continued presence.
September 3rd, they're going to be there looking and doing their reporting. So we'll find out. I guess, we're going to have to wait for their findings. They're going to leave the inspectors there until the 3rd of September. And then when we have an update from the International Atomic Energy Agency on this story and what they conclude, my fear is, I'll just give them my fear, is that we'll get a wishy-washy report from them with nothing really conclusive. And then there won't be anything in there about this commando raid this morning. So it'll be wishy-washy, and
how
it'll
can
be
you get anything
empty.
And how can you get anything conclusive in basically 2.5 days?
Well, good question. I think one thing, like Scott Ritter said, who was a weapons inspector, right? He said you'd very quickly be able to see the direction of the shell, the azimuth of the shell line, where the directions came from, where the shells were fired from. That's something you can quickly do. So they'd be able to point out the holes in the roof, the shell casings, the impact craters, and all of that.
Unless it's been tampered with, of course.
What's interesting is this person in the chat had said, we're not hearing about this at all in Sweden, right? So speaking of nuclear catastrophes, Chernobyl happened on a Friday night, right?
Right.
Early Friday in the morning. And the government went the whole weekend without acknowledging it. So people were like jogging. Kids went out and did PE.
Kids were playing.
Things, everything is normal. Until 9 a.m. on Monday morning, a nuclear power station in Sweden detected abnormal radiation levels in the air by a nuclear dust cloud somewhere drifting, right?
So Sweden figured it out.
It was Sweden that first acknowledged Chernobyl, not the government, right? So you would think, like, of all of us, yes, we're all surprised that we're not hearing more about this from the mainstream media. Not really, but we are, right?
Right.
But Sweden might be one of those places where they'd say, hey, this would affect us, right? We've been here before. Let's not do this again.
Yeah, so thank you for...
If you want to see a very accurate accounting of that, watch the show Chernobyl on HBO. It is excellent, and they followed the timeline exactly, and it shows you how that all played out, and it's amazing to see how it played out and how, like, to this day there's still things there that are not good, but watch that show. It's excellent.
I don't think I will watch that show.
I watched the first show. I watched the first episode, loved it, and then something else came up and we were busy with something. I want to go back and rewatch that and start from the beginning.
We have a joke in our house that I won't watch anything that's like got disturbing images, but I'll read the most fucked up books. Like I'll read it in a book and it's worse, but I just won't watch it.
I'm like, what are you reading? She's like, I'm reading about the genocide in this. I'm like, what?
You're
but
like,
you won't
why?
watch. You won't watch the show.
I won't
about
watch it.
Like,
There's something like in the, if it's like, oh, people's, nails are peeling off or something. I'm like, nope, can't watch that. But I'll I'll read about it in a book and really get even deeper into the depression. So anyway, that's all, not to say that I don't absolutely value your recommendations, David, but I probably won't watch that.
Don't watch the new Winnie the Pooh movie that's being
absolutely. I will not.
The Winnie the Pooh horror movie that's
No.
gone viral today.